program music, I don't know if that's a term that everybody knows, but it's as I mentioned, it's a very generic term for, you know, when composers try to paint a picture of something very specific. You know, we can talk about the mood that a composer creates, and that happens with any sort of music. You know, be it something tragic or heartfelt or longing. But program music is when a composer sets out to do something very specific and to sort of give you a scene, a painting of a scene, or an event, or something that he's trying to illuminate a specific idea. So I thought it would be fun. We've been hearing a lot of string quartets over the past couple weeks. So we're going to bring some pianists to the fore. And what I thought I would do is I like to, you know, I thought last week having a little mystery involved and not sort of spoon feeding. I'm going to play a piece of music, and I'm going to first ask you who you think composed it. And then we'll discuss what you think that composer was trying to elucidate.
Okay.
Will it be multiple choice?
No, I'm afraid not. I'm a taskmaster. So so it's great. I found this old recording. This and I'll lead. You know, I'm not going to bury the lead. I'm going to start with Dubravka Tomšič. Do we remember who she was?
Yes. Yeah.
Is. I mean, she's a really legendary pianist. A very people with very specific and refined tastes. You know, there are a lot of pianists that are around in the world, and she's in her 80s now. But she was just an extraordinary artist and would come occasionally to Tanglewood as well. And I've got a recording here from March 24th of 2000, so 20 years ago, of Dubravka Tomšič playing a mystery piece. So we're going to first determine who the composer was, and then we'll talk about what you think the music is trying to say. This is a selection. It's one of the longer ones. It's about 10 minutes, but you know, I think we could all, you know, use a little listening to some music. I don't think that's too much of a burden. So the first piece, Dubravka Tomšič from 2000. Here we go. Okay. Now, before we go any further, if you know the piece, refrain. Please refrain. Please, please. Any thoughts on the composer? Debussy.
Liszt.
Liszt.
Not Bach, Beethoven, Brahms, Schubert, Mozart.
Tchaikovsky, maybe?
Tchaikovsky.
A second.
I think Liszt also.
Who said they think Liszt also?
That's a good guess.
John and Marty and Brian. So I will say winner, winner, chicken dinner to Jennifer. It is Liszt. You know, with the beginning of program music, as I said cheekily in my email, you know,
This can't be.
and during Beethoven's time and beforehand, you know, these ideas were really considered sort of to be folksy and not very proper. You know, the nicknames ascribed to sonatas like the Appassionata and Pathétique were made after Beethoven's life, for the most part, by publishers trying to sell music. So, you know, after Beethoven, you know, you have this next wave of Berlioz and Liszt, especially. Liszt was a major proponent of program music in music history. So this is a work of Liszt that is in his, I would say, latter period. I think the piece is from the 1860s. And what is Mr. Liszt trying to sort of evoke? What did you get from that?
A lot of trills.
A lot of trills.
Water.
Water flowing.
Waterfall.
Rain.
Waterfall.
Rain and water.
Spring rain.
A sea voyage.
A sea voyage.
Did get stormy in there, so yeah, I heard that.
Interesting. What would you know, there were certainly a lot of trills and a lot of those sort of figures throughout the music. There, to me, seemed compositionally, there was something else happening where a lot of stuff was in the upper register, right? Sort of noodling up here, and then in the lower register, there was sort of, what would you say, a feeling of what was happening?
Can I just ask, at the beginning, was she actually plucking the strings? It's the way it came through on my.
No, not at all. Liszt did not utilize such techniques.
Okay, because that threw me off. I thought it must be very modern composer.
Yeah, the first composer to use that technique was Henry Cowell, and I believe it wasn't until the 1920s or 30s. Rough. How would you give me a sort of descriptor in an adjective? Like, how would you, the feel of the music? Was it I mean, I heard stormy. Was it aggressive? Was it peaceful? What, you know, what did you glean from it?
Tricky. What am I want to say? Flowing. I have to find the word.
Say turmoil.
Turmoil.
Yeah.
Started out like a spring rain, and then it went through all the moods of a rainstorm to me, and it was calm, and then it got stormy again, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. I came in
found
at
a lot
the
of those
very
upper.
end, but it sounded very much like nature to me.
Nature.
Yeah, like that. Contemplative to me, yeah.
Contemplative. Ooh, we're getting there. So, when I was sending out my email, I was pained to choose the image that I would accompany that email with, because I really wanted to use this image for this piece, but it would have given it away. So this piece is a piece. It's one of his two legends, and it's Saint Francis of Assisi giving the sermon to the birds. So I would agree that the contemplative aspect, and that's what I was getting at in the left hand, he was using a lot of very meditative imagery, you know, and very staid, and these big chords. Even when it was building, it was like ba 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 ba. You know, it was very, very almost pious. And then the birds everywhere. So I can understand that the considering it to be water, but those were all birds. Birds everywhere. And it was the St. Francis giving his sermon to the birds. And this was during a period in Liszt's life where he really became quite religious. He had spent his life as a young superstar soloist who was out doing all sorts of things, being a bad boy throughout most of his life, and then he came back to the church and lived in a seminary for many years. And this is one of those pieces from that period. And it's a wonderful, wonderful piece. You can just imagine all these birds just fluttering about as St. Francis is giving his sermon. So yes, so that's it's interesting. Nature, certainly nature, and a contemplative nature sense to the piece is what Liszt was going for. Interesting. So the next piece I chose, I wanted to include a singer, because with Lieder, it's inherently descriptive.
Yeah.
You know, the composer is trying to, illuminate the text that's happening, the poetry that's happening, the scene at which the poet is describing. So unfortunately, I was trying to find something that wasn't in German, but I failed. I tried to do a Czech piece, and it wasn't really what I was looking for. But I have a recording of Mark Padmore from a few years ago, who's one of my favorites for sure. One of the great singers, and he's on the program next year with Mitsuko Uchida. But let's hear a performance. This is from, I don't have the date. It's, I believe, March of 2017. It's Mark Padmore with Jonathan Biss. It's a very brief song. So first, again, we're looking for the composer, and then what is he looking for? What is that composer describing? This is actually a little bit tough, but let's see if he can get it. Here we go.
Okay, thanks.
Der
Oof.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Who's the singer? Who's the composer?
No idea.
Schubert.
Ilana. Can't hear you.
You're muted.
You're muted. Oh dear.
No.
Okay. Gustav Mahler.
Oof. Oof. Anyone else? We've got Mahler.
Wolf?
This piece is Franz Schubert.
Oh.
Oh.
Ooh.
Yeah.
This is a late work of Schubert.
Mm-hmm.
We were only a little off.
Slightly, but that speaks to Schubert more than your ears, because this is a very, very I mean, it's just a breathtaking little song, isn't it? Creates a certain mood. So maybe first we should start at describing what do you feel when you hear this song?
Despair.
Oh, he was dying at that point.
It's like a pandemic funeral.
It's like anguish to me.
Anguish.
Mournful.
Yeah.
More than mournful.
Mournful.
Contemplating
Remorse.
death.
Something about death, yes.
Yeah. It's morbid.
Ah, those
Perhaps his
German
own death
poets.
that's approaching.
Indeed,
Yes, upcoming.
So
indeed.
who is the
Funereal is
poet?
the word in my mind too. Yeah.
Sorry, Brian, what did you
Oh,
say?
funereal. Like yeah. I mean, like I heard it kind of approaching. It kind of climaxed and then it receded. So it kind of felt like a procession going and coming and going.
Greg?
I was just wondering, who is the poet?
Oof.
Yeah, you don't know.
I believe, no, it's not. Oh, I should know that. I'm so sorry. It's not who is in my head, and that's not a good thing.
Thanks for playing.
It's one of two, and I can't remember the other. That's going to haunt me. That's terrible.
That's all right.
They need to be like us.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
You can look up the program.
I'm looking. No, don't look. No, don't do it. Don't do it. I'm looking up the poet. Oh my goodness gracious! It's Heine.
I know. Well, dark.
So I think we can all agree that this wasn't a perky little piece, was it?
No.
What is the name of the poem or the song?
Well, that will give it away, won't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
So he was. So this is quite a famous song of Schubert, and it's from Schwanengesang, Swan Song. This collection that was cobbled together by his publisher posthumously. There were songs of Ludwig Rellstab and Heine. And this is Der Doppelganger.
Yeah.
So this is really about terror. Terror about looking death in the face and death looking back at you. Nice, huh?
Mm.
But you see what he does with Schubert's, Schubert tends to be, some people discuss the difference between Schumann and Schubert in the Lieder, where Schumann sets a grand setting in which the song takes place. And Schubert is a little bit more literal, where he has the babbling brook and things like, and he does these little sort of trinkets to tell you what's going on in the music. But this is a song that's he just sets this scene of just sheer despair and terror.
Seems appropriate for today, which has been declared the National Day of Mourning, recognizing over 100,000 people dying from the virus. Plus
exactly. Not to mention everything else that's happening. But
yeah.
but it's interesting to Alana. It's funny to say Mahler it could be Mahler. And that's how innovative this song is.
Yeah.
It's a remarkable little song, and it's, you know, the penultimate song of that cycle. And it's, you know, it's just harrowing music. But I you know, it's, to call it program music, I wanted to get a song in there because this, you know, a song composer, a leader composer sets a scene for you. And, you know, and this is the difficulty with leader for audiences, is that I don't understand the language and I don't, you know, but oof, you sit back and you know that this is just, even if you don't know a word of German, that this is something really bad is happening in this song. Something very frightful. Okay, selection number 3. I promise it will be cheerier. This is from a performance on January 29th, 2017 by the pianist Alexander Melnikov, who is a protege of Richter, a Russian pianist, and he's now living in Berlin, and he came back last season. He did a 2 seasons ago, sorry, a 4-hand concert with Andreas Steyer. But this is a 5-minute piece from his recital in January of 2017. Let's give a listen. So,
Alexander Scriabin. Perhaps.
Scriabin.
Debussy.
I was going to say
David.
Debussy.
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 Jennifer is nodding Debussy. Shirley, Debussy. Debussy.
Yes.
So it was interesting. If you look up, I was trying to sum up when I was doing the email, like, okay, to be succinct about what program music is. And you look up program music and they, Wikipedia will list the composers and their works of program music. It's a little weird. But under Debussy, the listing, which I found rather humorous, was that literally almost every piece of Debussy's is program music. So it's very evocative, it's very funny. So Debussy, what is he trying to do here?
The life of insects.
The life of insects. Interesting.
Angry bees at first, huh? In the hive, then they got out.
Certainly not a note exploring about.
It sounded like an argument to me.
An argument?
Of bees?
That's actually not bad, an argument.
Not necessarily of bees.
Yeah. There were certainly episodes, and then this is why I speak to the argument, where things were sort of happening and then they weren't happening, and then sometimes they were happening against each other. Sort of it flourished and then died, and then another flourish, and then it comes down, and then multiple flourishes are happening at once. So this piece is from his second book of Preludes. And I believe closes the second book of Preludes. Yes, he closes the second book of Preludes.
He played the entire book in that concert, as I recall. Right?
Yes, he did. He did this. The entire second half of this was the second book of the Debussy. So the title of this piece, and forgive me, my French is horrific, is Feu d'artifice, which is fireworks.
Fireworks.
Fireworks. So he was depicting these flourishes of fireworks going off, and all these bands and different explosions of fireworks, which is why I think, Marjorie, your comment about arguing, I think, is apt, because there were those that are collapsing upon one upon the other. It's very amazing. The second book of Preludes is a little quirkier than the first book of Preludes, for sure. But marvelous nonetheless. They're not done nearly as often as they should be, and I think that the first book of the Preludes is done far more than they are. We're going to move to the next piece, and I'm not going to tell you the artist, because that's just how it's going to be. This is from a performance. I'm not even going to tell you the date of the performance. I just don't want to give anything away. But this is a violinist who came a couple seasons ago, and this is a very short selection of a movement from a sonata. And here we go. Let's give a listen. We're all over the place tonight. Composer.
Is it Aaron Copland?
Good guess. Aaron
By Charles
Copland.
Ives.
Charles Ives.
Yes, Ives.
Charles Ives. He didn't write music. He sold insurance.
He was very good at it.
Yes, he was. That was Charles Ives, which is why I didn't want to give away the performers. That was Stefan Joachim and Jeremy Denk a couple seasons
Gotta
ago.
be Ives.
Complete Ives sonatas. So what was happening?
Everything. We had
Harmonically too, right? Yeah.
turkeys in the straw and just about everything else.
Well, it's so typically Ives. I mean, Ives who brings in conflicting things happening in the street, in the different kinds of music and throws them together. I mean, it's almost quintessentially Ives.
Yeah, but what especially about this movement? Bringing his Ivesian touch to a scene. What was he doing? I mean, John mentioned about something like Turkey in the Straw. What were you getting at, John?
Well, obviously you got the music, but
Square dance of some sort,
Yeah.
perhaps, of celebration.
Celebration.
Country Square.
Yep.
Was that
Sorry, Shirley?
Yeah.
Sound like a hoedown at the beginning.
Hoedown.
Yeah.
And there you go. And that's why, David, that was a great guess. From all due respect to Mr. Copeland. So the title of this movement, this is from the second sonata. This is the middle movement of the second sonata, and it's called In the Barn. And that's exactly what it is. It's a hoedown in a barn. So Mazel Tov, you guys. You guys nailed that one. That was great. But you see, he brings as Ellen Dean had said, you know, his idiomatic, this it's so Ives. I mean, it's just so very Ives. And then he just adds a sort of country fiddling all over the place, you know, that's just there. It's just, there's a little bit of ragtime, hoedown, and that gives it that extra thing. It's not that typical Ivesian where the marching bands are going, you know, marching in the square and coming together in different keys. He's giving you that flavor of a hoedown, which is quite cool, you know. I mean, even if it's atonal. So good. Wow, you guys, you know, that was actually not an easy one. So that's awesome. What time is it? It is 10 of. I've got one more, and it's a 10-minute piece. And I'm not going to tell you who this is again. I'm just tricky that way. Let me play it, and here we go. If you know the piece, shh. Michael, who is the composer? No? You raised your hand. Go ahead.
Stravinsky?
Yes.
Stravinsky?
Igor
Stravinsky.
Stravinsky.
Yeah.
It cannot be anyone else with those
Yep.
rhythms.
Yeah, has to be. And the
Fantastic.
harmonics too.
Russian.
Russian.
Very good background in music.
The pianist wasn't Russian, though.
Who's the pianist?
That was Roman Rabinovich from last December.
Okay.
So what was Mr. Stravinsky, what did you feel about that music? I know his music is, you know, it's, what was he trying to portray there?
It sounded like it later became American in Paris.
Exactly.
What?
I think Mr. Gershwin was lifting from Mr. Stravinsky,
Yes.
if you ask me.
Yeah.
Very good comment. It was, so what else? What else did it evoke?
A fairy tale?
Kind of, if you want to be specific, yes.
Sorry, what did he say? Fairy tale.
Well,
So there was definitely why I think Gershwin lifted. There's a certain hustle and bustle about this piece, right?
But it sounded a little like Petrushka.
It sounded a lot like Petrushka.
Yeah.
But what about Petrushka?
The circus part of it.
Yeah,
The circus part, the showmanship of it. Yeah.
It's actually the last act. It's the movement is called the Shrovetide Fair.
Yeah.
So this is Carnival. This is when the charlatan Petrushka enters Carnival and all the festivities, and then he's sort of dancing about at Carnival. But he's, you know, Stravinsky sets this thing where there's just, you know, there are just people everywhere, hustling and bustling. It could be a bazaar, you know, where activity was happening. And the image that I sent with the email was a painting of the original sets of Petrushka. I was trying to be a little tricky there. I think I succeeded. Nobody would have gotten that. But yeah, I mean, you know, he just sets the scene where you're just, you know, it's just so energetic and just so bubbly and dancing. You know, there's just, you know, it's just, you can't help but sort of, you know, we were all sitting around, but I mean, you just can't help but move with this music. You know, it's really something. So you see, it's a little tough. I mean, what we're gathering is that when you don't have any frame of reference, you can pick out aspects with your ear of what the composer is trying to do, but it's hard to pinpoint without sort of a frame of reference. And I think our little experiment worked here. So yeah, I mean, I think you guys did a really, really wonderful job, especially with the Ives. You know, that's tough music, but you know, when you get a composer of great skill that can evoke in any idiom of their choosing and their methodology, you know, you can get a sense of what they're doing. And then this is the beauty of a program note, where it gives you the entryway, and you read the program note, you see what the composer is doing it, what he's trying to say, and then you listen. So what I wanted to do tonight was to do that backwards. I really wanted you to just be open and listen. And let's see what we come up with from there. And then when you go back into this music and you see the frame of reference, you can listen to it and then say, oh, yeah, look what he's doing there. Yeah, you know, that's it's an incredible discovery. And, you know, oftentimes we're slave to the program note.
Melodies.
So you know, it's a good exercise to listen to music and think, okay, what am I feeling here? What is the composer trying to tell me? Right? And sometimes it's very specific, and sometimes it's just a mood. Sometimes it's just something more, you know, they set a tone, something, you know, when you're talking about Beethoven 111 in the variations in the second movement, you know, where, you know, people speak of, there's the celestial variation, which I believe I think it's number 5 or 6. But, you know, what is it telling you? Let it allow the music to tell you something. Be open in your listening, and be adventurous in your listening. Don't bury your head in the program note. Give it a try first, and then go back to the program note. Then you can listen again, and you just keep discovering what the composer is telling you. It's a really wonderful, wonderful exercise. And I especially, as you know, that I like singers, and I'll do leader concerts. I don't care if 5 people show up. I'm going to do a leader concert every season. I don't care, because that music is so communicative in what it's telling you. It's so evocative of what the composer is trying to tell you. I believe it's the most intimate art form of chamber music. I really do believe that. And oftentimes at leader programs, you're so worried about the language, and I look in the audience and you're just buried in the text, and you're never looking and listening to the singer. And just trust your ears. These are all innate traits that we have, and listen. And these composers are extraordinary and will teach us things that, you know, we may not have known before. And that's what's wonderful about what we do. So yeah, so I really I knew, you know, I wasn't looking to see if we can pinpoint things tonight, but I wanted you to just let go and listen and say, okay, well, this is what I hear, and let's see if that's connected to what this guy's trying to tell me. So go forth, and you should do this with your own listening, and go back and keep listening with the knowledge. Once you have that knowledge, go back and listen. And then listen again, and then listen to some other recording of it and see what that musician is trying to tell you. And then go listen to another musician. And it's never ending. I mean, it's just a rabbit hole that's just wondrous. You know, stay safe, and let's keep getting together. Okay, I look forward to seeing you next week. I still don't have a topic next week, but I'll have another doozy. But thanks to everybody for joining me tonight. It's great to see you, and yeah, hope you're all